All right, thanks for joining us tonight. We are going to be talking about the USS New Jersey, Battleship USS New Jersey. We've got author Paul Stillwell joining us tonight. And of course, it's another live crossover broadcast, 3 YouTube channels, and the popular Museum Ships Facebook group. People helping me tonight. We've got Shane Stevenson, curator of the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. John Epp, curator at the USS Slater in Albany.
Hello.
He does not have his camera active, but he's with us.
Apologies.
And of course, Connor, behind the scenes, helping us, pulling the levers and dials. He's going to be monitoring your questions and comments. He's also one of the administrators with the Museum Ships Facebook group. So thanks for joining us tonight. Like I always say, we can't do this without subscribers and viewers. So submit your questions, submit your comments. Like I said a few moments ago, Connor will organize those and get those up on the screen. Let's see, and let us know where you're watching from. If you're watching on the History X YouTube channel, Buffalo Naval Park, USS Slater, let us know where you're connecting. Tonight, another episode from our author series in collaboration with the U.S. Naval Institute Press. Check out their website, www.usni.org. All right, author Paul Stillwell. Author of Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History. Actually, I've got a picture of it. Hold on a second here. Let's pull this up. So, Paul's book, Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History. This was actually a book that was originally published. When was that, Paul?
1986. And that was stimulated by the New Jersey coming back into commission in the 80s in the Reagan administration. And I went aboard the ship in 1983 to talk to crew members, just get a sense of it. And by good fortune of timing, I was on board when the New Jersey fired the first Tomahawk missile by a battleship. And I was part of the crowd on the fantail, and you would have thought it was a football crowd. There was so much enthusiasm and cheering. The Tomahawk emerged out of the canister box launcher and just hung in the air for a second. And you had this immediate thought, oh no, something's gone wrong. But that's exactly what was supposed to happen. The booster kicked in, and there you can see a picture of it. It flew off 500 or 600 miles into the desert in Nevada, made a direct hit on the target. So new technology welded onto a 40-year-old hull.
I want to get into some of your history here real quick. Like I said, we've got Paul Stillwell, author of the Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History. So Paul, he has a pretty interesting background. Freelance historian. Of course, he's got a bachelor's degree in history, but a master's degree in journalism, and involved in the writing or editing of 14 different books, all military related. 30 years with the Naval Reserve, retiring in 1992 with the rank of commander. Active duty 1966 to 69 in the Western Pacific, including Vietnam. And this is where it gets really interesting for tonight. He served from May to October 1969 on board the Battleship New Jersey. So like you were saying a few moments ago, okay, so you served on board the New Jersey, let's see, in 1969, but then you had a chance to get back on board when under the Reagan administration, when it was in the Persian Gulf. So how did that feel? Did it feel like, oh, I know exactly where I am, or was the ship totally different?
Well, I knew mostly where I was. I would say that the changes were technological and maybe 5 or 10% of the ship. Much of it, including in the fire control for the 16-inch guns, the 5-inch guns, was still analog technology from the 1940s. And that was the remarkable thing, being able to graft all these electronics onto an old ship and make it work. And for a long time, the New Jersey was a defensive ship. When she went with the aircraft carriers in World War II, anti-aircraft protection. In Korea, in Vietnam, her main role was shore bombardment. And then we come to the 80s, and she's got these long-range weapons. So now she's an offensive ship, as she had been intended when she was commissioned in 1943.
What, let's see. So was the book that you originally published on the New Jersey, what you had written that after your time aboard in the Persian Gulf?
No,
It was before?
The first edition came out in 1986.
Oh, yeah.
Stimulated by the fact that the ship had returned to active commission. So there was a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And every day the ship was making new history. So my dad put it well. He said, "You're trying to paint a picture of a moving train." And it's a good metaphor.
Yes.
But we had to have a cutoff point. And so there it was. So the book came out. It was well received. And I thought, well, okay, the train moved on. Finally, the ship got decommissioned in 1991. And so in preparation for that, visited the ship in 1990 and interviewed a bunch more crew members. And I'd like to emphasize that this is the story of the people who lived in, worked in, and operated this amazing weapon. Technical stuff you can get in a number of places, but this is really a people story. And the way to explain it is that for a time we were part of the ship, and ever since then the ship has been part of us. I was Assistant Combat Information Center down in the fourth deck, CIC. So whenever there were guns were shooting or were going in and out of port or whatever, I was looking at a radar scope. And had some great radarmen, as they were called then, serving in my division. And then in August of 1969, after we'd spent the summer training and on a midshipman cruise, we got the news that the ship would be decommissioned instead. And this might have been tied in with the Paris peace talks, trying to make an agreement with the North Vietnamese to end the Vietnam War. So I had been scheduled to stay on into the fall of 1970, but I got detached in October 69 because when a ship is going through the mothballing process, there is no need for an Assistant Combat Information Center officer. That is strictly a seagoing role. And I might add that a couple of weeks ago, I talked to my boss, the CIC officer, Captain Tom Taylor, retired. And it was just like old times. We're talking about the ship and speaking of the things that we loved about her and enjoyed. There's a saying, friends may come and go, but shipmates are forever. And in a way, that is the summation of this book. I talked to or had letters from about 200 former crew members. So it's really a human story of what it's like to live and work in a great ship like this.
What was it like when you guys, you had said that you guys received word that the ship was going to be decommissioned? And then you make the comment, like shipmates are forever. So I don't know, is that a punch in the gut? What was the reaction to the crew when that word started to get around?
There was gloom throughout the ship.
Really?
Because we had spent the summer in gunfire support training, rehearsal, getting refresher training for those who had been on board for the Vietnam cruise and getting those of us new to it up to speed. We made a wonderful midshipman cruise that went to Alameda, California. And I still remember pulling in there, and there was a band on the shore playing "There Will Be a Hot Time in the Old Town Tonight." We went to Tacoma, and the ship was anchored out, and people had to come out by boats to visit. And one young lady in a miniskirt came out with a sailor, and when it was taps, I was on the beach guard duty, and I called the ship and I said, "Are all the visitors ashore now?" "Oh, yes, they are." Well, sometime after taps, this young woman came out. She was with another person than another shipmate than the one she went with. And there were some jokes about what might have happened in the lower handling room. Then
jokes are actually what happened in the lower handling room.
We can guess.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we had to get the drunk and disorderly back to the ship, and they were not all eager to do that. So I called out to the ship and said, here we have these men. And most of them were fairly docile, but one of them was a salty old petty officer, probably a first class. And he needed some help to get into the boat going back to the ship. He was a little belligerent. And he saw me wearing my uniform and said, hey, you up there in the Navy suit, if you really put some work into it, you might become a battleship sailor too. Well, that to a degree, that didn't work out because I didn't get to make a deployment. But clouds have silver linings. I went back to Missouri in October, flew out to Bremerton and attended the decommissioning in Bremerton, Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. And our skipper was Captain Robert Peniston, and he had a touching speech, and he said, rest well, New Jersey, yet sleep lightly, to hear the call, if it is again sounded, to provide firepower for freedom. Thanks to her magnificent crew, she is ready, and she will hear the call. 2 weeks after the decommissioning, I went from 600 miles from Missouri to Minnesota for a blind date and met my future wife. So we celebrated our 55th anniversary this year. And I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have happened if the ship went to Vietnam as scheduled. So you can sum up life in 3 quick words. You never know.
Okay, so I live up here in Minnesota, Minneapolis specifically. Why on earth would you go 600 miles to come here to Minnesota for a blind date?
Tread lightly, Paul, tread lightly.
What?
Mind you, this is at the end of December. I had known a friend in undergrad in Missouri, and also he was in the same division with the LST when I was overseas in the Navy. And I think his wife put him up to it, but karma comes in a variety of forms. There was a bus strike in Minneapolis that fall. He was a grad student at the University of Minnesota, and his neighbor was the journalism librarian at the university. So because of the strike, he started giving her rides to work during the days. They got acquainted, and he said, well, you're going into journalism, and she's a journalism librarian. Maybe you should meet. Well, I didn't have anything else on the schedule at that moment, so I went from Springfield, Missouri to Minneapolis, and we hit it off right away. I would say I knew right away that she was the one. She is a person of more discerning judgment. It took her a little longer, but we were engaged 4 months later and married 4 months after that.
Did you at least have a picture?
Oh, yes. And there was a report about all her attributes, and she has lived up to them. And so luck comes in many forms, and that was a great piece of luck for us.
Yeah, well, at least you had a picture to go on. For a second, I thought you drove 600 miles without even seeing a picture.
Well,
so
we did have.
Can I follow up here a little bit?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. So it's a more of a narrative than a technical book about the ship itself.
Oh, Shane wants to get back to the book. I want to hear more about the love story. All right, fine. We can talk about the book if you want.
Paul might do an autobiography, and then you can pick that
up. Fine.
So did you? Are there themes to the narratives, or is it just one sailor's story, or did you build themes based on rate or rank, or is it just kind of it flows from one story, a separate story to a separate story to a separate story?
Well, it's a chronological narrative, and you fit things in as you've heard the things from the various sailors and officers that I talked to. One man talked about when they were putting the turret framework into the ship, and the crane that was going to lift it from a barge onto the ship had a 400-ton capacity, and he looked at the barge and he could see that it was drawing more than 400 tons. So he said, my goal was to get under that thing as it came over, so that if anything wrong happened, I would be wiped out and I wouldn't have to answer any questions at the court of inquiry. People had these interesting stories, and the ship got underway in company with the USS Iowa in 43, went down the Atlantic coast and stopped in Panama. And apparently there are some somewhat raunchy places that sailors can go. I don't know how they have a talent for finding them, and I don't want to limit that just to enlisted people, but a fight broke out in this bar, and it happened because some of the sailors from the Iowa had been mistreating one of the women entertainers. Ooh. So I talked to a guy named Roger Faw, very colorful individual. And Roger said, I have been in a lot of barroom fights over the years, and that is the only one that I know the actual cause of it. Roger had another story. This ties in with the medical department. He had a ruptured appendix, and he was not completely anesthetized. He was semi-conscious. Oh. And he said the ship was firing at the time, and he noticed that the doctor did his work in between salvos. So you get that human element. Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to remind everyone that tonight we've got Paul Stillwell joining us tonight. Let me pull up his picture again. And he is the author of Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History. Now, if you're interested in his book, you find some of the stories that he's sharing interesting. In the link of this video below, you can check out the website within the U.S. Naval Institute Press on where you can get a copy of Paul's book, Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History. So check out the description of the video below. You'll find it right there. Let's see here. I wanted to pull up some of the pictures, Paul, that you had sent before we went live. You were talking about this picture here. And yeah, can you tell us what's going on here?
Well, there was a cruise the New Jersey made in 1988 to Australia, and the ship was not fitted as a flagship. When she was recommissioned in 1982, there was an idea that we're going to keep it economical. We're not going to make this glorified taxi cab to carry an admiral around, but they decided, okay, we've shown that she can do her job. And there was a flag officer, Robert Cahooney, Rear Admiral, who was the destroyer commander, group commander in Long Beach. And he had ship's force and the yard put in flag quarters on the port side, just opposite the captain's cabin on the right, the starboard side. And he even had the thought that Queen Elizabeth might show up in Australia because it was the bicentennial. And so he ordered that the head in the admiral's new quarters would be fitted for a queen. And I've talked to Ryan Szymanski, who's the curator and historian at the New Jersey Memorial, and he and Libby Jones do a superb job. There's Ryan. He has done dozens and dozens of YouTube videos of various parts of the ship. So I asked Ryan, what is the state of the Admiral's Head in New Jersey? He said, it is very plush, and there's a room in there for the Queen and a bunch of her corgi dogs if she wants to bring those along.
So wait, so that's the way it exists right now?
Yes, there's the flag quarters on the port side, and that's the ship's silver service that he's doing a video about.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, so you had mentioned that the head had been rearranged for the Queen. Is that the way the ship is right now? Yes. No kidding.
But there was an irony there because Admiral Kahune got promoted to Vice Admiral, Commander Surf Pack, so he didn't get to make the cruise anyway. So they had a lovely time, and Captain Doug Katz came on. The previous skipper, Captain Lou Glenn, tragically was badly injured one morning helping his son deliver papers in Southern California, and a truck hit them from the rear. The driver had dropped something on the floor, reached over to pick it up, and didn't see that the captain's car was double parked and rammed it from the rear. The Captain Glenn was temporarily trapped in the car, had to be taken out with the jaws of life, and he just unfortunately never was the same again. Well, Vice Admiral Joe Metcalf was in the Pentagon then as DCNO for surface warfare, and he called up Sharon Katz, who was the wife of a department head at the Naval Academy, and she said, my wife and I would like to have you meet us for lunch tomorrow. And Sharon Katz said, well, what about Doug? Well, no, we just want you. And she told me years later that apparently they were sizing her up to see what kind of a skipper's wife she would make. And she evidently passed the test. And in a ceremony on board the ship, Captain Katz relieved Glenn, and he brought such a sense of joy, and he had a motto: it doesn't get any better than this. And that was an exuberant thing that had the crew really inspired. But he was just showing his wife Sharon around right after he took command. And he said, well, I've got the key to Admiral Halsey's bedroom, because in World War II, the New Jersey had been flagship for Com Third Fleet during the Battle of Leyte Gulf. And he said, well, would you like to see the Admiral's bedroom? Well, sure enough. So he unlocked the door, and in there was Sailor and his girlfriend making whoopee on Halsey's bed.
Oh, boy.
So the captain ordered him out, and he installed a captain's mast to be held in the ship's wardroom.
Oh, no.
Because he figured there would be a pretty good crowd for this.
Yeah.
Chief Petty Officers showed up to watch it. And he said, gentlemen, do not burst out laughing. This is a serious proceeding, and I don't want to anything to detract from that. So he administered the punishment. He decreased the sailor in rate. And he said, but I got to give you credit. You've got a lot of balls. If I ever had to go into war, I'd want you right alongside me. Well, at that point, the dam broke. The laughter burst throughout the wardroom. There was nothing the captain could do about it. But he said that sailor stuck to him almost as a mentor the rest of his time. And when the captain was relieved a couple years later, the sailor thanked the captain. He said, you have really helped me and inspired me. And that sense of enthusiasm that Katz brought was just instrumental in making it such a vibrant ship. Great cruise to Australia, lots of visitors. And then Captain Ron Tucker relieved him, and he had a motto called Wetsu, we eat this stuff up, that he had brought from a previous ship. And the S does not necessarily stand for stuff. You can use your imagination, but it was another motivational tool to get people involved. Then they had a cruise up to Portland, Oregon. And this involved going under a bridge, and there were protesters hanging down from the bridge. And they were saying no nukes. Well, that was ridiculous. The ship was not nuclear powered. She had no nuclear weapons on board, but I guess they wanted to make their views known. There was an embarked Rear Admiral, J. Paul Reason. He had taken over the flag officer role when Kahune was promoted. And he had the ship stop briefly as they approached the bridge. And he said to those around him, this is America, and people have a right to free speech, and they are allowed to protest. So after they had made their voice known, the ship proceeded under the bridge and probably didn't miss the protesters hanging down by very much. And I suspect that they got out of the way pretty gingerly. Well, the ship went in, and this was part of the Portland Rose Festival. And a number of the sailors and chief petty officers were invited to a taping of the Oregon Lottery show. And so they had a great time. And afterward, the producer came up to them, or director, and said, well, we tried to visit the New Jersey yesterday, and we couldn't get aboard. There was such a long line. And so the Master Chief Bill Romer said, tell you what, show up tomorrow at such and such a time, and we will give you a tour of the ship. And it was very thorough, stem to stern, top to bottom. They got to see things that the people who stood in line for an hour never got to see. And the TV people were so impressed, they said to Master Chief Romer, well, that was great. What can we do for you? And Romer said, well, you are a lottery. You got a lot of money. How about giving me $1 million? So time passed. The ship went back to Long Beach. And after a while, a package showed up. And they had SOAR patrolmen around and people guarding it. And they opened up the package, and it was cellophane wrapped of shredded American money, greenbacks, little pieces of them. Mm-hmm. And on the outside, there was a label that said $1 million, more or less. So this is a human story. And that's what I've tried to portray throughout the book, because readers, even if you don't know the technical side of it, you can identify with what humans are going through as they're experiencing life. And it explains what life is like on board a great dreadnought.
Sorry, here real quick, Connor, let me remind everyone that we are talking to author Paul Stillwell tonight, author of Battleship New Jersey, the complete story, published by the U.S. Naval Institute Press. We're happy to have him on tonight. Connor, sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say we do have a question for you.
Go for it.
And the question is, was there ever a royal visit aboard New Jersey?
Yes, there was. 1988. It was the Australian bicentennial. Prince Andrew and his then wife Fergie were there to commemorate the bicentennial of Australia. And so Captain Katz gave them a guided tour of the New Jersey. And then Andrew reciprocated by the ship that was there. Many years earlier, back in 1947, the ship was on a midshipman cruise to Europe, visited England, and some of the midshipmen on board went to Buckingham Palace and sort of crashed a garden party for Princess Elizabeth and her fiance, the future Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, and talked to them for a while. The ship went then to Norway, and King Haakon VII came aboard as royalty, and there's royalty. He came aboard in an admiral's uniform, and he said he wanted to see a stateroom of a typical officer. Well, as it happened, the stateroom that he was guided to was occupied by John Bulkeley, who was a commander, along from the Naval Academy staff. He had earned the Medal of Honor in 1942 for his work in PT boats, escorting MacArthur out of the Philippines so he could make his way out to Australia from the Philippines. And there in the middle of the day with the Royal King of Norway looking in, there's Bulkeley asleep in his rack. And so somebody commented, if it hadn't been for that Medal of Honor, he probably would have been shoved out a porthole. But from time to time, royalty did come aboard. In 1957, there's a picture when the ship was in New York, Bayonne, New Jersey, being inactivated. Wasn't exactly royalty, but there was a movie star, Julie Newmar, who was then on Broadway in a production of Little Abner. And there's a picture in the book of Captain Brooks, the skipper. And the grin on his face is really interesting to see as he ogles this movie star who's quite well built.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of visitors over the years.
Very interesting. Yeah, I figure with ship like New Jersey and how well traveled it was, that doesn't surprise me. Probably saw a lot of dignitaries in its career.
Oh yes, a lot of admirals.
When the ship was recommissioned, let's see here, that was in 1982. Yeah, 1982. When the ship was recommissioned in 1982, did you know that was going to happen? Did you see that coming, or was that a complete surprise for you?
It was far from a complete surprise.
Oh, okay.
I followed the New Jersey assiduously, and there was a reporter from the New York Times named Bill Honan who had gone to the shipyard in Los Angeles and interviewed the prospective commanding officer, Captain Bill Fogarty. And his picture, Fogarty's picture, appeared on the cover of the New York Times Magazine. So there was a complete story about the reactivation. And Honan and I talked frequently so I could give him background on the naval side of it for his article. And so, of course, I knew it was coming, but the recommissioning was rescheduled. It was supposed to be in early 1983, and it was hurriedly moved to December 28th, 82. So to accommodate Reagan's Southern California visit for Christmas. And he came aboard and he was very enthusiastic, and Captain Fogarty showed him around. And Fogarty's mother was on board and talking to Reagan, and she had grown up in the Midwest, and they remembered this radio station that he had broadcast on. And she asked him, or he asked her, well, did you know about so-and-so speakeasy back in that era? And certainly she did. So he was a people person. And that was a skill that all of the skippers had. I go to Rich Milligan, who succeeded Fogarty. He went on board as the ship was going by Central America. She'd been rerouted to El Salvador and then got orders to go to Lebanon because the unease in Lebanon and the Syrians were involved. And he came out by helicopter, Milligan did, and he said, Fogarty and I are about the same size, and I don't know if the might have been a wrestling match to see who got to take her to the Mediterranean. And Fortunately, it didn't come to that. But Milligan had that same enthusiasm. And initially, the New Jersey was just sitting there, supposedly as a weapon in waiting. Finally fired a few rounds in December of 83, but just steaming back and forth, ready to go into action if needed. And that action came on the early 83. The ship on one day fired 288 rounds of 16-inch projectiles into Syrian positions. The fire control was a little iffy because they had problems with the power aging at not constant rates, and that can affect the initial muzzle velocity as the projectile goes out the barrel. But when you saturate the area with 288 rounds, you're bound to hit whatever you're shooting at. So it was a long, tiring day for the captain. He told me he went back into his sea cabin, going to lie down, go to sleep, but his bed was soaked with water. There was a water pipe over his head, and the concussion of the ship's firing had broken the water pipe. So fortunately, it didn't happen. So he didn't get a shower, but he did need some clean bedclothes. But the deployment went on, and the Iowa was then down in Pascagoula, Mississippi, undergoing modernization. And there was a popular commercial at the time for Rolaids. How do you spell relief? Rolaids. Well, they asked that same question of the men on board the New Jersey, and their answer was IOWA. Well, it happened that President Reagan decided to end the U.S. mission to Lebanon, so the New Jersey got to go home after 11 months of what was initially supposed to be about a 3-month shakedown cruise. And there are pictures in the book that show the homecoming on May 5th, 1983, and the joy as sailors and officers are reunited with their loved ones after all that time. I should add, in the meantime, to break up this long deployment, the ship arranged with various reserve units in the United States to send officer and enlisted reservists out to the ship to take the places of crew members so they could go home on leave and at least break up this long deployment. So again, it was a human story that you've got people who are tired of the day in, day out routine, and if you can get them some help, you do. And I want to add one comment on that picture you see there. Just below the bridge, you can see a 40 millimeter gun tub that's painted light blue inside. Captain Ed Snyder was the skipper when I reported aboard, and he was a very popular individual. He would roam throughout the ship. He trusted his officers of the deck. And on occasion, he would get into that gun tub filled with water and float around on an air mattress. And he would go down and eat in the crew's mess. He had a birthday cake for every month for people who had birthdays that month. He was with the crew. He showed them that he cared about them. And I remember overhearing a sailor as I walked by one time, and he saw Captain Snyder, and he said, "He's a cool head." And I think that's the highest acclamation that a commanding officer can get. There's an old saying in the Navy, loyalty up produces loyalty down, or the other way around. And he was loyal down, and that inspired all this loyalty up. I would even say he was beloved. Then he was relieved, and the new captain, Captain Peniston, had known the New Jersey since he was a midshipman. He reported, went aboard for a visit in 1943 when he was a plebe at the Naval Academy. When he was commissioned in 1946, he was an ensign on board. And now he had the sad task of taking her to Bremerton to decommission her. So we were underway only 3 days from Long Beach to Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. And he was on the bridge the whole time. He was just a different personality from Snyder. Peniston was straight-laced and proper, just a different style of leadership and personality. And I admired them both, and was thrilled to have the opportunity to serve there. And it has been the favorite job I've ever had in my life, and I still feel that way today.
In the late 1960s, I can't remember what year it was. The New Jersey, and I can't remember who the commanding officer was either, but the New Jersey did a speed run, which I think got it up to maybe 40 knots.
Well, the highest.
Were you on board that time?
No. The highest I read in the ship's history was 35, and I have to wonder if that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the ship had a design speed of 33, and amazingly, she had 212,000 shaft horsepower, and that's a great tonnage to horsepower ratio. That's why the speed, and she was built long and relatively narrow so she could cut through the waves. And one time I was freed from CIC, however it came about, to be topside when we were going back into port. And the ship was steaming along at 27 knots, using only half of the engineering plant.
Wow.
My previous ship, the Washoe County, could go 14 knots top speed. So what a sensation to be topside and see us going that fast. And
Yeah.
I've heard that she put on top speed to go over to the Mediterranean because of the Lebanon crisis. And I talked to Chief Petty Officer, who was in the chief's mess, which was all the way aft and near the screws. And the vibration was so great that they couldn't sleep in their bunks at night. They had to go sleep in their offices. He said if you put a coffee cup down, it would just shake and shake. So you didn't want to do that. But that just gives you an idea of the tremendous power that the ship had. And
Yeah.
I was helped so much. I got to emphasize in writing this revised edition from Ryan Szymanski, who is a walking encyclopedia about the ship, and Libby Jones, the director of education. They were just enormously helpful. And I also talked to Pat Jones, who was a local politician, and she gave me the story on how the ship came to Camden, New Jersey, rather than up north near Jersey City or Bayonne. And there was a lot of political activity and a study. And the Camden group produced a multi-100-page document that was used as a model for other ships and how to go about getting a ship. And she's been in Camden since 2001. She was towed up in the wake of 9/11, the anniversary of which is tomorrow. And it would normally have been a hoopla occasion, but it was low key because there was concern about terrorism. So it was done on the quiet. The ship was dedicated, great ceremony, and the ship has accommodated visitors. There are special programs, including being able to stay overnight for Cub Scouts and youth. They have chief petty officers initiations. They have programs. And it's just a very welcoming place. And how exciting for young children to be able to go aboard and see this magnificent thing. There are weddings held on board, various programs. So I guess they have an event planner for some of that, but it's needed. And she has helped revitalize the waterfront in Camden, New Jersey. And so it has really been a draw both for the ship itself and for the state.
Paul, I want to ask you about dry docking of the New Jersey, but before I do, John, Shane, Connor, any questions for Paul?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go for it.
So you mentioned how tight-knit the crew was. As an officer aboard the ship, how was your relationship with the enlisted? As in, did you have trouble balancing friendships with your subordinates as your role as their superior?
Well, you don't get buddy with the crew, but they're professionals. They do their jobs and you do yours. And I hope it was a case of mutual respect. Certainly I respected what they did. And the pride just flows through you when you serve in a ship like that. And that is another great morale factor.
Shane, Connor, any questions for Paul?
Firstly, I did look up the top speed. New Jersey is recognized by the Guinness Book of Records. She held a top speed of 35.2 knots, which is 40.5 miles per hour, for 6 hours. And
6 hours.
Yeah, and it says here that the reason for her ability to get to that speed was due to her reduced weight, as she had removed most of her World War II era anti-aircraft systems, as well as other components. Although I'm not sure how accurate that is. Again, it's Guinness Book of World Records from however many years ago, but I did just look that up now.
That sort of explains where the 40 knots came from when it was translated to land miles per hour.
Yeah. And of course, if you're getting rid of World War II anti-aircraft guns and you're talking about late 60s Vietnam, I mean, it made sense that those had to go.
And there were fewer people on board.
Oh, there were.
They didn't need the crew members for all those anti-aircraft guns. And I don't know whether she had a full load of fuel and ammo on board when she made that speed run. That also could make a difference.
So the question I did have, though, was now that we're in a situation where New Jersey has been a museum now for 24 years at this point, have you talked with many members of New Jersey's crew that you would have served with and what they think of New Jersey now as a museum? Like, are they proud of that fact? Or do some of them still wish that she was still hanging around in the Navy?
Well, I think reality has to enter into this. They're proud to have served. I don't think anyone realistically thinks that the ship could serve in today's environment. For one thing, when the ship was built, a seaman made $35 or $36 a month or $50 or whatever it was. Well, now I would suspect it's $1,000 or $2,000 for just the lowest rated. So she's expensive to run. The fuel was costly, and the weapons, the missiles she carried can be carried on ships that are a lot less costly to operate. Then you've got the fact that the technology is so old, and I just don't think it would be feasible. It is maybe verging on a miracle that she did get to serve again from 82 to 91. And ironically, she was decommissioned when Desert Storm was in progress, and the Missouri and Wisconsin were over there bombarding and Iraq. And I had interviewed two men who were in the final crew of the New Jersey, including Chaplain Jim Nichols. Right after he did the benediction at the decommissioning ceremony, he and a first-class petty officer named Leon Tucker got on an airplane and reported to the Missouri as she was fighting in Desert Storm. So the battleship experience just stays with you.
Have you had a chance, the opportunity, whatever you want to call it, to check out the other Iowa-class battleship as museum ships?
I have. And also the Texas down in Galveston. I'm just a battleship junkie, so it's on my compulsive obsessive to-do list, and I have done that. Remarkably, on board the Wisconsin, there's a huge photo mural from about 1952, and I was able to pick out the picture of the navigator, who was Lieutenant Commander Elmo Zumwalt. In 1970, he became the Chief of Naval Operations and put in fundamental changes in the way the Navy operates, equal opportunity, and many such things. I should mention that Paul Reason, who was the final embarked flag officer in the New Jersey, became the Navy's first African-American four-star admiral. So she had a lot of talent on board.
I want to hit you with one more question before we let you go tonight, and definitely appreciate you being all generous with your time. But one thing that always kind of fascinated me, and I think it was in the 1980s, was the turret explosion aboard the Iowa. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, that was a tragic event. It happened on April 19th, 1989. The ship was operating in the Caribbean, and the center gun of turret 2 had an explosion and killed all the men in the turret, and down the barbette. And initially, petty officer, gunner's mate Hertwig was accused of sabotaging the ship by putting an exploding charge in that blew up the turret. And it fell to Doug Katz, Captain Doug Katz, the previous skipper of New Jersey, to go out to Ohio and talk to the Hertwig family and tell them that the Board of Investigation had found their son guilty of blowing up his shipmates. And that was a hard pill to swallow for people. You don't kill your shipmates. So then independent tests were done by the Sandia laboratory and determined that the problem was that the ramming of the powder into the barrel had caused the explosion. The powder was improperly put in the trim layer of the powder bag, and the overpressure commenced the explosion, and fell to Captain Katz then to go out to Ohio again and tell the Hertwig family that their son had not killed his shipmates. And there was a moratorium on firing by the New Jersey and the other Iowa-class battleships after that. As it happened, the New Jersey was the first to be able to fire afterward, and Captain Ron Tucker got into the turret as his way of saying to his men, I believe this is totally safe and I'm here with you. And the firing went off without any untoward incident.
Very good.
Sailor Nathaniel Clifford Jones from Buffalo who perished in that turret explosion. And he's buried at Arlington.
Very sad.
Yeah. So at the time, you being a officer that served aboard the New Jersey, when you heard about the Iowa situation, what were your thoughts at the time? Did you just like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all? Or, did you have your doubts, or were you just kind of waiting to see what the reports were?
Well, there was no question that it had happened and it was very bad, but I wasn't enough of a technical person to be able to ascertain the cause of it. Mm-hmm. And sadly, it was former skipper Rich Milligan, by then a rear admiral, that conducted the investigation that found Hertwig to be the cause. And so I'm grateful that the Sandia laboratory was able to find the actual cause and exonerate him, posthumously, of course. But that was a very dark day for the battleship community, and we might infer that was one of the causes for the decommissioning of the class fairly soon after that.
And then when it comes to the New Jersey being a museum ship, kind of like as a follow-up to Connor's question, let me so how many times or how often do you get a chance, or no, before I do that, I wanted to ask you about this. When the ship went into dry dock, did you get a chance to see it out of the water?
Well, yes. I've mentioned Ryan and Libby several times, and they were so gracious. They conducted a tour one morning for my wife, Karen, and me, the woman from Minneapolis, of course. And we were able to go down into the dry dock. We were able to walk under the ship. I had seen her in dry dock when she was undergoing mothballing in Bremerton, but I had never been in the dry dock with the ship. And she is just immense. It's a staggering thing to contemplate from that viewpoint.
Is that going to be the image that sticks with you forever, or do you have another thought in mind?
The image that will stick with me is the day-to-day life on board the ship. It was a joy. I mean, I thought about those people who stood in line for hours to walk from one end of the main deck to another, and I got to live there every day. It was just a source of pride and joy. So I open up those snapshots frequently, and they're always positive.
How was the food?
Food was superb. Fortunately, I was a lot younger then, and so it didn't have as much effect on my midsection as it might now. But the cooks were just great. We had a Sunday night tradition. We'd have steak night with baked Alaska for dessert. Interesting sidelight, there were two long tables that went from one side of the wardroom to the other, perpendicular to the axis of the ship. And we always sat in numerical rank order, not only by your rank, but your date of rank when you'd been promoted. And so that didn't change too often. So you were always with the same guys, but we'd meet others at breakfast and lunch. So it was just a convivial atmosphere. Just, I continue to have such warm feelings about having been there.
Well, we definitely want to thank you for joining us tonight. I want to remind everybody that we've been talking to author Paul Stillwell, wrote the book Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History, and recently released a revision to the book. Let's see, that went out in July of this year. Is that right?
Yes, the official publication was August 5th. The first copies came out in July.
And
so
for anyone,
this is a new book.
For anyone interested in a copy of Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History, definitely check the description of this video below. You will see a link to the U.S. Naval Institute Press, and you can grab a copy of this book. Paul, we definitely appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for the critique of the food aboard the Battleship New Jersey. And again, I just can't thank you enough for your generosity. You know, we've had you on close to an hour, so thanks for your time. You're East Coast, right?
I am. And
okay.
I just am grateful to you for the opportunity to talk about my favorite ship.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've had Ryan on in the past. Ryan Szymanski joined us, I think at the end of 2023. Definitely good to have you talk to us about it now. So before we let you go and talk behind your back, I want to ask the guys one more time. Any last questions? John, Shane, Connor, any last questions for Paul?
Yeah. Now that you've finished work on this new edition of the book, do you have any other projects in the works?
Well, I certainly have one in mind, and this may surprise you. I want to write about the St. Louis Cardinals. Okay. I went to journalism school to become a sports writer. And initially, I worked as PR for the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team and later the football team. And I lost the second job when I had the temerity to ask for a raise. So I was lucky then to land at the Naval Institute, and that was in 1974. So I've been with the Institute in one capacity or another for 51 years. Mm-hmm. So people ask me, as I do the history, why don't you have a doctorate? And I say, well, you don't see many PhDs in press boxes. Well, this in a way will be getting back to what I had intended all those years ago in journalism school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that's interesting. So you've been involved in the publishing of 14 books, either, writing or editing, what it said, and they're all military related. I mean, I could go down the list, carrier war, submarine stories, aviation art of World War II. There's one that I found interesting, the Golden 13 Recollections of the First Black Naval Officers that you published in 1993, but nothing about sports.
No,
So you're going to jump ship, and now you're going to become a sports writer.
well, that's my hope.
Okay.
Very good.
Did the New Jersey crew have a sports team, softball, baseball, anything like that?
Oh, that's a
Yes.
good question, John.
As a matter of fact, I played briefly in the New Jersey softball team. And recently, when I saw Ryan, I handed him my New Jersey sports letter, the kind they give out in high school and college. And so that will become an artifact in the New Jersey Museum. I don't know that I played that many games or played that well, but that was a way of uniting my two great loves.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what position did you play, and were you any good?
First base. The baseball coach in college put me on the team sort of as a charity case. I got to play on a road trips when the good players would stay behind for fraternity or sorority dances. I did manage to get one legitimate hit and one pop fly that fell untouched by the fielders, so I had 2 hits during the season.
All right, author. Here we go. There it is. Author Paul Stillwell. Thanks for joining us tonight. He's the author of Battleship New Jersey: The Complete History. As I said before, check out the description of the video below. You'll find a link to the U.S. Naval Institute Press and their website, and the opportunity for you to purchase a copy of this book. So, Paul, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, like I always say, we're going to kick you off now and talk behind your back. So thanks for your time.
Have at it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. A lot of times we just don't have like a narrative like that, a human, where he's focusing on the humans and the crew and the interrelations, and presumably to the detriment of talking about the ship itself. And so that should be a good, interesting read for people that like the human side of shipboard life.
I always get a kick out of the simple questions, stuff like, what was the food like? Or he's talking about, the vibration of the ship, and people can't sleep, they've got to sleep. So I always like hearing, sure, people like to hear about the battles and that type of stuff. But when you talk about, well, he kept repeating it, the human interest side of things, I get a kick out of hearing the simple details. Even John, that was a good question about the sports team. I didn't even know ships did stuff like that.
Well, you can't have a fighting ship without a good crew, and it's important that we are highlighting these stories of the crew, and not necessarily the ship's accolades, but just the crew and their bonding. I'm glad he did this.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff, and glad to have him on. Again, all of the authors that we've had on this year made possible by the Naval Institute Press. So this is something that Shane set up for us. So every month we've got a different author coming up for you guys to enjoy. And
Next month, we got to say it now while people are next month. And actually this month as well.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my point. I think you and I are on the same page. So it's the next author we've got coming up is actually, we're going to do, did you confirm Monday the 22nd with Sam?
We let him know. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I did give him the schedule. So for Ken and I have worked with Sam from the USNI, and we have another live session. Yeah. Do you have the dates in front of you?
Oh, well, yeah. So I was just looking at that. So we're going to have a special episode, hopefully, if we can get this lined up. It would be Monday the 22nd. So not this coming week, but the following week. Monday the 22nd will be author David Smith. And shoot, I just lost my screen. Hold on a second.
It's about
He wrote, oh, damn it. Hold on a second. Where the
We're really professional here, everyone.
I know. I'm blowing it. I'm just like literally blowing
about
it.
Admiral Dewey.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
So it's a biography or his life about Admiral Dewey. And
Yeah.
this has been such a success. And the authors have enjoyed this so much that, for the next, for September and for October, we're doubling up the authors. And so obviously, I'll let you, Ken, do the honors of inviting John and Connor, and if they can make it, but we have to get those schedules to you if you're able to make it on.
I should be free for the 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the 22nd. That's going to be David Smith, author of George Dewey and the Rise of the Navy, Admiral George Dewey and the Rise of the Navy, and then on coming up in October. So, and of course, we always have episodes on the second week of the month, which for October is October 8th, and that episode is one that Shane's been looking forward to. Norman Friedman, naval architect Norman Friedman. His book, hold on a second here.
Well, I think Sam has kind of let it be like whatever book he wants to talk about.
Yeah. And of course, that coincides with the 250th anniversary of the Navy. So we're having Norman Friedman on. Quite frankly, I didn't know who he was until all of you guys pointed it out to me. So we're excited to have him on. That is August 8th. And then the following week, that is October 8th, Wednesday, October 8th. And then the week after that, October 15th, Wednesday, October 15th, we are going to have author Thomas Cutler joining us. And he wrote a book that focuses on the USS Johnston, Commander Ernest Evans, and the destroyer USS Johnston.
Mm-hmm.
His book is... Oh, I don't have it here. Well, he wrote about the USS Johnston. His book actually comes out in October, and unfortunately, I don't have it here. But yeah, so that kind of gives everybody the lineup of what we've got coming up in the next few weeks. And this is all made possible by the U.S. Naval Institute Press. Sam, one of the PR guys at the U.S. Naval Institute Press, has been lining authors up for us. So that's where these people come from. We're happy to have them join us. Every time we've had a different author on, they're very generous with their time, great stories. And we're looking forward to the next few weeks. It's going to be pretty active. So hopefully you'll join us for that. All right. It's
the 22nd of September, 8 October, 15 October.
That's correct. Monday, the 22nd of September. And then the rest of them are Wednesdays. So hope you join us. Oh, I'm sorry, Connor. Are we keeping you up?
Yeah.
No.
Break?
What?
You're keeping Connor awake.
Yeah, I think we're gonna put you in a timeout. Let's see here. Okay, so moving on. Let's hear what's going on with you guys. And so first and foremost, actually, hold on a second. Let me switch presentations. Let's see. Okay, so we've got. Here we go. This is the most recent photo of the Buffalo Naval Park. And Shane Stevenson, curator of the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. Check out their YouTube channel. Simply go to the search bar and enter Buffalo Naval Park, and you'll see all the content that they bring up. You can also check out the website, buffalonavalpark.org. Shane, what do you got coming up?
Yeah, so it's a really busy September. Tomorrow is our 9/11 Day of Caring, which we will have. The park is closed, but we'll have about between 200 and 300 volunteers from various Buffalo, Western New York companies and businesses that will be doing work for us. We have a 9/11 ceremony to remember the day. And we have a visit from Rear Admiral Robert Worth, who is a Western New York native who is in town. He was just promoted to a 2-star, so Rear Admiral upper half. And so I've been kind of his like on-site handler, and we have a nice day planned. So if you're in the Western New York area, we do have the ceremony at 11:30. He is also then giving a presentation with the Naval Park and the Navy League, our local chapter of the U.S. Navy League, at 4 p.m. in our hangar building about the future state of the U.S. Navy. So that will go from 4 to 5. Our ceremony is from 11:30 to 12:30. And then we move right after that busy day tomorrow. We move right into preparation for the National Maritime Historical Society / HINSA Symposium. So that's coming up September 24 through 27. And I mean, it's a lot of work. I have 2 colleagues that are in meetings 4 hours a week, working with the HINSA team and the National Maritime Historical Society with all the planning. It is going to be, if you're watching and you're with a museum ship, you know, it's a different setup than it normally is, because there is a co-sponsor, and so the presentations are set up a little bit set up different this year. But I'm hopeful it will really expand out the breadth of knowledge that will be talked about, and it will be a great way for the HINSA community to meet with the larger maritime commercial lighthouses, sail days, you know, that sort of history with the maritime attachment. So looking forward to seeing how our 2 organizations blend well. And then I am off to visit the HS Velos in Thessaloniki, Greece. So I have not done much on YouTube. If you guys know, I've just been busy with other things, and I don't have the time. I haven't had the time lately to put together an idea and the script and stuff. But I will be doing videos visiting the ex-USS Charette HS Velos, which the Cass and Young, the Sullivans, and the Kidd talked a lot about in the 80th anniversaries back in 2023. If you remember, we did some partnering videos with the Cass and Young and Kidd, and we kept saying, hey, can we get the Charette involved or the Velos? And so now I'm very happy to be saying that I will be visiting and filming videos for our YouTube channel about that. So yeah, a lot going on. Ken, I'll let you talk about Cobia if you want. So
oh yeah, just briefly, next week Shane and I will be in Wisconsin to check out the Cobia. Hopefully the Cobia will be in dry dock by that time.
Actually, I should just say Karen just posted pictures of her going into dry dock today.
great.
Good. So
She's out of the water as of now.
Oh, good.
So yeah, Karen was able to accelerate the dry docking to accommodate our schedule. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Karen, for getting it out of the water before we showed up next week.
Yeah, so we'll be doing that. I will be hopefully filming. I did reach out just as a backup to what you had asked, Ken. So hopefully we can certainly go to the dry dock, but can we film?
Yeah,
And so
I'll let you pull out your camera first, and then we'll see what happens. Let's see. All right. Shane Stevenson, curator at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. Like I said before, check out their website, buffalonavalpark.org. And I can't say this enough, but when you check out the YouTube channel and you search for Buffalo Naval Park, you know, make sure you like and subscribe the content. It's one of the simplest ways to throw your support behind the efforts that people like Shane and John make with their museum ships. So by all means, if you can donate, great. But if you can't, at least check out the content, like, subscribe, grow their channels, because it is an opportunity for these YouTube channels to generate revenue for the museum. So the more subscribers, the more views, the more revenue they generate. Let's see. All right, moving on to John Epp, curator at the USS Slater in Albany, New York. Their YouTube channel, search for USS Slater in the search bar. Check out their website, ussslater.org. John, what's up?
So it's been a busy past couple of weeks. We hosted 2 Coast Guard harbor tugs the tug Wire, and then last week the tug Hawser. They were both up here. They stayed. They tap alongside Slater. Spent a few days up here doing boat safety, things like that. So that was always fun, helping them out. And then work continues on our flying bridge maintenance. Our volunteers continue working up there, patching holes and trying to make the space a little more inviting, I guess you could say. That's about it.
What space is this? What are you talking about again?
Our flying bridge.
Oh, the flying bridge. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you were saying, I think it's probably several episodes ago, that you guys had discovered that it's in rough shape.
Well, yes, we discovered that a year or two ago. The deck underneath the gun director is in very rough shape. But then overall, it's the deck is rusted. It doesn't look anything like the rest of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's off the tour route. It's the highest deck of the ship, so it's difficult to get much up there. But work continues on there. So hopefully we'll get it back to looking good here in the next little bit.
And let's see. So when do you guys finally close down for the season?
It'll be the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
So you're going to be open for quite a while yet.
Yeah, and we've already seen since school has gone back, we certainly slowed down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. John Epp, curator at the USS Slater in Albany, New York. They're going to be open, did you say until basically the end of November, the week after Thanksgiving?
Yes, the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Pay him a visit. John is available for personal tours. So when you show up,
I can be.
Ask for John Epp. Yeah, tell everyone there you want a tour from John Epp, and he'd be happy to take you around.
John has been very accommodating. I've sent 2 individuals to him, one that's already happened, one that will be happening in the future. And John has been, extremely accommodating. And, he shows off a little bit, he gets out his, his welding mask, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm the curator. Hi, welcome aboard." Right? Or he's grinding away somewhere, "Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot you were coming."
Please tell me he doesn't do that.
No, I will not even attempt to pretend I know much about maintenance. I could do some grinding and some painting,
there you go,
some chipping, but no welding, nothing fabulous.
But thank you, John, in seriousness.
My pleasure. I've been fortunate, and we've had quite a few people show up and say, we watch your stuff on museum ships.
Isn't that nice?
That's
so nice.
great.
You guys remember Hoist the Jack? We haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
No, not.
I gave him, it was a 4 or 5 hour tour when he came in. Yeah.
Did he come in recently, or?
He stopped in twice. It's been probably a year or 2 since I last saw him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have not. He was very active. He came to the Naval Park. Anyway, but yeah, maybe things happen, and you just get busy and stuff like that, or your interest shifts sometimes. So, but I'm glad you mentioned him again.
But certainly, along the lines of what you were just saying, if anybody ever wants a tour from me, just contact us in advance. I'd be happy to do so.
Yeah, or if you want to call ahead, Connor's going to put John's cell phone number at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to contact him directly, and you can set those tours up.
I mean, I have it.
Huh? All right, moving on to let's see here. We've got Connor, who we're happy to have Connor as part of our broadcast because he is one of the administrators for the Museum Ships Facebook group. And tonight Connor has a presentation for you about take it away, Connor.
All right, everyone. So yeah, I am with Museum Ships. I am with museumships.us as well. If you're planning a late fall museum ship trip anywhere in the world, feel free to take a look at our website at museumships.us. And we have a lovely list of all the museum ships. Well, not all of them, but most of them around the world. But unfortunately, we are down a museum ship tonight. As the news broke late last night that the United States Coast Guard cutter McLean has unfortunately gone to the scrapper. McLean is a active class Coast Guard cutter. She was built and commissioned in 1927. I'm going to embarrass. Yep, 1927, and she was decommissioned in 1968. So she had a 41-year career. The ship served basically everywhere on both coasts. And in World War II, she was used as basically a patrol ship, where she actually engaged and sunk a Japanese submarine along with another vessel. And as a result, she had notable distinction of being a Coast Guard ship with a kill mark on her superstructure. Now, these photos are mine. I visited the ship in 2022. And as you can see in the photos, she is looking a little rough. But unfortunately, it became public knowledge last night that she had gone for scrap. She is part of the Silversides Museum, which hosts the USS Silversides, the most successful surviving submarine left in the world. There she is right there. And she was in Muskegon, Michigan, right along their entry canal into the main bay there. Beautiful museum. If you ever have a chance, I would highly recommend seeing the Silversides. She's a fantastic ship. And from what I understand, they're raising money for dry docking of Silversides now. But from what I have read and from what people who work and volunteer there have told me, her hull was in very bad shape, and basically they were left in a situation where they could dry dock one, but if they didn't, then they would lose the other or potentially lose both. So that, unfortunately, we have lost a museum ship from the fleet. And to note, that means that her sister ship, United States Coast Guard cutter Morris, is the last Coast Guard ship in North America that's a museum that isn't either a icebreaker or a Treasury class cutter. So this is kind of a sad moment in the sense that we are losing a relatively unique piece of United States Coast Guard history.
When did you say this thing was launched again? 1920 what?
1927.
Almost 100 years old.
Yep. So she was just 2 years off.
Wow.
And so basically she served right up until 1968. And then from 68 until 1993, she was on the Great Lakes as basically a training boat for sea cadets. And then in 1993, she was given to the Silversides Museum, where she then spent the last 32 years as a museum.
You know, Sir Boomslot makes a comment here, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree. In his opinion, in many people's opinion, obviously you can't choose both going into dry dock, so of course you're going to pick the submarine.
Yep.
But here's my question. So with you being the administrator of the Facebook group, the museum ships Facebook group, when you've got it's like a Sophie's choice, right? You got to pick one, you got to pick the, so how do you feel about it when I mean, look, this ship's not a submarine, right?
No.
But at the same time, it's sad to see these things go.
Ultimately, not just speaking as an admin, but also speaking as someone who has worked in the museum world and is currently undergoing education about artifact preservation and museum management, it's understandable. The museum is called the USS Silversides Museum. They are focused on the Silversides. The entire museum is focused around this submarine. So McCain, to me, always felt like a bit of a side attraction for them. And I know that they had a lot of volunteers that put a lot of time into this boat, and I really feel bad for them. But I understand the museum situation. Now, as a museum ship enthusiast, I hate seeing any museum ship go to scrap, especially one that I potentially could have gone to see again. But no, it's understandable. And realistically, this just goes to show the problem that every multi-ship museum has to contend with. When you are reliant on visitation, when you're focused on one thing or another. Sorry, I got the hiccups. Focused on one thing or another, you have to make those hard choices, because with some museums, if you're a multi-ship and you don't have the visitation to support both, you might be put in a situation where you might have to give up one. Now, ideally, you want to find a new home for the ship that you're getting rid of. But in this case, it looks like they were either unable to, or she was in just such a bad shape that they didn't want to go through that hassle. It's disappointing. It's disappointing. I enjoyed my tour. I enjoyed my tour of her immensely. She was a very unique vessel. And I'm just glad that it seems that both the museum at Silversides, but also other museums managed to go aboard and retrieve components from her before she was taken away.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that before we went live, that some other museums were able to find some stuff on board to use in their own museums. I forgot about that.
And I'd like to add.
Go ahead.
So social media is good and bad about it. And there's going to be a lot of, just like the SS United States, there's going to be a lot of diversive opinions about this decision. And just, I hope nobody is going to go on social media and blast the museum. I know some have already done that on the museum ship's Facebook page, as well as the Silverside Facebook for this decision. The folks at that museum, it's not like they woke up yesterday and said, you know what we want to do today? Let's get rid of the ship and scrap her. They did not want to scrap her. She's beloved there. This was an extremely difficult decision for them. So I hope everybody thinks about that before they go on social media and try to complain about this.
I 100% agree with John. We have worked throughout the day to delete the worst of the comments. And
how bad are they getting?
There were some bad ones.
Really?
Not as bad as SS United States, but there were some bad ones. And basically, just realize that these teams that preserve these ships are doing the best they can with crews that are volunteer and employee crews that are way smaller than these ships would have had to maintain them, with limited budgets, potentially very limited budgets. So if you want to stop these ships from being lost, consider volunteering, consider donating, get involved with this community more than just watching a monthly show or occasionally liking a post on social media. These ships, all need support, and we will welcome it. And just keep the passion for these vessels alive so that we don't see ships like this go to the scrapper more regularly.
And this day and age, we're all, begging for money, whether it's the museum ships or every nonprofit in the world. It's always begging for money. And you don't feel like you need to donate thousands of dollars or even, $50. If you can get down to your local museum ship or just your local museum in general, doesn't have to be a museum ship, you would be so surprised. Just 2 or 3 hours of work of what you could do. We recently had a volunteer come in and, he's like, I got a couple hours to kill. What can I do for you? We just gave him a broom and a dustpan. He walked the ship, walked the tour out, and just swept. Just things like that helps out tremendously. So don't feel like I don't have any special skills. I can't help them out. You can sweep and mop. That helps out so much.
Yeah, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, like John said, you can literally just show up, right? You don't need to.
Well, I won't say that. It always helps to kind of, hey, give them a call. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time, and I'm talking, and with the three of you and the listeners today, and the people who will be watching it, say tomorrow and the next day. I'm not directly potentially speaking to you, but yeah, it's time to put money and mouth where they belong, right? It's, if you can volunteer, please do so, right? If you can, I know, as John said, it's if you can support financially and you want to choose a couple of museum ships a year and you say, okay, every year I'm going to give $100 to 2 different museums. Here's these 2 this year, next year picking 2 other ships.
That will buy a gallon of paint, and that helps.
Yeah, I mean, this.
Yeah, but to your point earlier, if you can't donate your dollars, donate your time, right?
Correct.
You
Correct.
know, and it does make a huge difference.
It does. I
It-
mean, it's, having gone through this, right? First off, Connor, you're talking about multi-ship museums. Yeah, I know a little about that. Having to make different choices. And everyone, especially, just kind of harkens me back to 2022 with how can you allow this to happen? Well, there's all of those factors into play. Multi-ship, having to divide up resources between 3 vessels. But now we're on a new path and a new course, and I'm sure the Silversides didn't want to see the McLean happen to what maybe happened to the Sullivans, and they made this choice, just like the submarine at Patriots Point, the Clamagore. They just decided to reef her, scrap her. There are hard choices, and there will be hard choices in the future, say the next 10 to 12 years. As other museum ships decide to do this, unless they're evolving and having much more engagement with the visitor and the community, which is a difficult thing to change. You got to move the Titanic for that. But, increasing visitor engagement, volunteer engagement is one of the ways, not the only way, but one of the ways to ensure survival.
All right, Connor, thank you for the presentation on the McLean. Let's see, here we go. All right, so Connor always takes care of our comments and handles stuff behind the scenes, but he is also one of the administrators for the Museum Ships Facebook group. So if you haven't done it before, get on Facebook and search for Museum Ships. It is a good sized group. It'll come up right away. And we were talking about animated discussions when it comes to museum ships, people posting their photos and videos of when they visit a museum ship. It's a fun group to be part of on Facebook, so I strongly recommend it. Also, Connor has the website up there, museumships.us. Check it out. Yeah. Especially if this is your thing. If you're enjoying the content that we're putting out here tonight, you're going to find some like-minded people also on Facebook and some like-minded content on the website. Let's see. Before I log off tonight, I want to point out a couple of people that I haven't recognized before. One, I'll just grab one of us. So do we know Frank Barnwell? He's new, right?
No, he's not new. He's been involved. Yeah, but he's been an active subscriber. I see him on our videos a lot, just through the Naval Park. So maybe that's where he's interfacing. But yeah, he must be a BB guy, with his active commenting tonight.
And Frank, I owe you an apology if you've been commenting on our on Museum Ship Mafia in the past. I apologize. I don't recognize the name, but you were active tonight. Definitely appreciate the comments. And it's always good to see new names, not only new names, but, new people submitting comments. And then also Mark Woods.
Yeah.
That's a name, again, that I don't recognize, but also submitted a lot of comments tonight. And the reason I just point this out is, as I've said many times before, we don't have the opportunity to do something like this if it's not for viewers and subscribers like you guys. So we appreciate you tuning in tonight. We appreciate the questions. We appreciate the comments. And, when we have authors on from the U.S. Naval Institute Press, they want to know that the viewers have questions for them. They love answering questions. So we appreciate that type of thing. Let's see, Frank, I'm in Houston.
He's actually he's a guided cruiser guy.
Got it. Well, wait, you said guided cruiser?
Yeah, CG.
I think that's Coast Guard.
Oh, see, I read that as guided cruiser.
Yeah, that's supposed to be Coast Guard. Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, for attending tonight. It was a great show.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm gonna bring up one last time. Thanks to, bear with me a second here. Thanks to Paul Stillwell again for being so generous. He was on with us for nearly an hour. U.S. Naval Institute Press publishing the book Battleship New Jersey. I should say a revision to the book, Battleship New Jersey, The Complete History. So Paul not only served aboard the Battleship New Jersey in the late 60s, but also went back when the New Jersey was in the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, and he interviewed close to 30 sailors and officers aboard the New Jersey. Those interviews, or I should say components of those interviews, appear in this book. So he mentioned it several times. It is a personal story. It is a personnel story, not necessarily about battles and the ship, but the people that served aboard it. So if you have any interest in checking out Paul's book, in the description of this video below, no matter if you're watching on History X, the USS Slater's YouTube channel, or the Buffalo Naval Park's YouTube channel, in the description of this video below, you'll see two links, one to the U.S. Naval Institute Press, where you can get the book there, or of course on Amazon. So please support our authors by checking out their projects and their books. If the guys don't have anything else to add, my name is Ken Stano with the YouTube channel History X. Thank you everyone for watching tonight, and hope you have a great evening.
Have a good
Bye,
night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.